Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who's here live and everybody who's watching this later on. I'm going to try to make this short and brief and as impactful as possible. And hopefully the most of the learning will come from people who jump up and give their pitch, because that's always what I find to be the most educational and informative, is seeing a real pitch, get real feedback in real time. And so that's what we're going to try to do, but I'll do a brief introduction of myself. So I'll give an intro and presentation. I'll do a warm up that people can follow along with. Then I'll show what is one of the foundations of my coaching, which I call the speech settings. And then we'll do that interactive pitch coaching. So my name is Will Greenblatt, and I'm the CEO of Out Loud Speaker School. We help founders tell powerful stories to grow their business. As we talked about, whether it's pitching, whether it is having a meeting with somebody for a partnership or hiring, or pitching to investors, pitching to customers, whatever you're doing when you're telling the story of the business, you should be doing that better. Everybody should be doing that better, myself included. And that's where we come in and try to help, especially with founders and entrepreneurs, which is my passion. This is me at 7 years old when I was a child actor. I did a movie called Homecoming with Anne Bancroft, which kickstarted this whole acting career. I continued acting through my teenage years and my adolescent years. And then I went to theater school in Montreal, and I thought, great, I'm going to be an actor. My career path is set. Lucky me. I ended up hating theater school so much due to the kind of toxic environment that was created by the educators. So I ended up quitting, which was really unfortunate at the time, but ended up taking me to Spain, which was so fantastic eventually. And I realized I love teaching, which is what I was doing there to fund my travels. With some other English teachers, I then went to China and started an English education and coaching company called West Group in China. I was in Hangzhou, for anyone who's from China or has been there. And then eventually I came back to Canada and put it all together to make Out Loud Speaker School, which we've now been in business for about 6 years. So yeah, that's a brief history of me. And then I want to throw it to you guys for a second and show you an image and ask you, what do you see here? If you could put it in the chat, just write a word of what this image says to you. And Craig, if you can monitor the chat and see what the answers coming in are and read them out, please.
I got village, storytelling.
Village, absolutely. Storytelling.
Like everyone's paying attention, like the family and the whole community is around, and
family, community,
really acting something out there.
Acting out, absolutely. Family, community, acting out. Any other anything else coming in?
Nope.
What time period do we think this is, Craig, if you had to guess?
Oh, absolutely. This looks I won't quite say prehistoric, but close to it. Yeah,
I would say prehistoric, and if not, then certainly yeah, certainly maybe 10,000 years ago max. This is a tribe as basically humans lived in for all of our history, except for a tiny, tiny sliver of recent years. We lived in small tribes of about 150 people, and we told stories around the campfire to share life-saving information. And the tribes that acted it out and made people's emotions engage with their storytelling and told really, really great, captivating, memorable stories were the tribes that survived, because people would hear the story, remember the information about where the predator was or where the food was, and then they would use that information to survive. All of us now, human beings, are the descendants of these hunter-gatherers who told stories. There's a great book called The Storytelling Animal, which I recommend to anybody who wants to know more about storytelling. That explains this very well. But of course, now we live in this new era. And even as Craig and I are talking right now, we have this weird barrier of technology where I'm sitting in my living room, Craig's in his office, you all are wherever you are, at home probably, or at an office, and we still have to talk to one another and get each other's emotions engaged, but we can't see each other's full bodies. We can't really sense each other's energy, so to speak, in the room. So how do we get these points across now that we are in this sort of weird hybrid of meeting in person sometimes, on Zoom sometimes? The really important thing is to not forget where we came from and how people still take in information. Life or death information told with gusto, told with some form of reenactment, told with emotionally engaging techniques. And that's where Out Loud Speaker School comes in. This is the kind of thing we teach. And we teach it to entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs are, in my opinion, naturally self-educators. They always want to learn more. They always want to be better at what they do. But they're also really good at something usually, but not necessarily at the communication of what they do. They have this idea that's really, really interesting that they built their whole business around, and they quit their job, or they, took a big risk to start this company. But then what happens? They get into the weeds. And there's all these details about the operations of the business, the sales, the marketing, all these things that you have to think of to run your business, and you forget about the gem of the idea and what makes it interesting to people. Craig, I see some stuff in the chat. Would you read if there's any questions or anything like that? I also want to encourage people, if they do have a question, they can write it in the chat and I'll try to get to it.
Absolutely. I'll let you know.
Okay, great. So one of the ways that you can create this the light bulb moment every time people hear your pitch is by making sure your mind and your body are ready to speak. And again, I forgot to mention this. I just want everybody to try to absorb. If they don't absorb anything else from this webinar, it's that an idea is not enough. You need a powerful pitch to get people on board. In order to do that, we need to warm up. Just like an athlete would never go into a big game before warming up, or an actor would never go on stage before warming up, you need to take your pitch as seriously as that, as an entrepreneur. If you work on code all day, or you work on creating pitch decks, or you're just sitting hunched over on the computer, and then you stand up and try to speak with power and clarity and emotion, you haven't warmed up those muscles. And it will be flatter, and it will be more dull and boring than you want it to be if you don't grease the wheels and warm up this mechanism, which is your voice and your face and your hands and your body. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Please follow along with me. This is something you can do before every single pitch, or you can do it just daily as an exercise. So the first thing we're going to do is stand up and put one hand on your chest and put the other on your belly, and take a nice big deep breath in. And breathe. Good. The reason we do this is because normally when we're not thinking about our breath, we're breathing very shallowly. And when you breathe shallowly, you sound nervous and you don't have enough oxygen, fuel to make nice, deep, musical sounding notes with your voice, which will make people want to listen to you, stay engaged, and remember what you said. And the other thing we want to practice is breathing into the bottom hand. So we're going to do 3 deep breaths, and I want your bottom hand to move more than your top hand. So you're going to breathe into the bottom hand and out. I'll adjust my camera so you can see the belly a little bit more. Breathe in. The bottom hand's going out, and then breathe out. The bottom hand's going back in. And then one more time, breathe in and out. So this has a couple functions. You guys can sit down again now. This has a couple functions. One is it makes you a lot more calm when you breathe in. Your diaphragm is allowed to descend. Your organs get a nice massage, and you take more oxygen in. And it just signals to your body that you are safe. And it really helps with stage fright or nerves, especially if you're nervous before a big investor pitch. You breathe into your belly 3 to 5 times, and you'll feel much more calm and regulated, which is great. Next up, we're going to make some sounds. So you're going to breathe in again and then go like this. And make the sound This warms up the resonators in your face and in your chest, which again helps you make these strong notes. Breathe in. Good. You want to make a louder and longer sound each time. We're going to breathe in and do one final one. Good. You should be that loud and long. And if you're somewhere where people can hear you, please don't be embarrassed. If they tell you to, shut the hell up, then you can do that out of respect. But in general, you want to make these loud sounds so you start to feel really strong and powerful, and people will hear it in your voice. Next up, we want to make our face muscles start to be more active, especially on Zoom. You only have this little box that a lot of people are looking at. So you want your eyebrows and your cheek muscles and everything to be really expressive. So we do an exercise called big face, small face. Big face is like this, and small face is like this. So we're going to go back and forth. Big face, small face, 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 and big face. Hold it. and release and shake it out and massage your cheeks and slap yourself in the face and do whatever you need to get blood flowing to your cheeks and your eyebrows and your forehead muscles, because this needs to be really on point and activated to emotionally engage with your audience. And the last thing we're going to do are tongue twisters. First tongue twister is unique New York. So wherever you are, repeat after me in the way that I do it. Unique New York. I'm going to assume you all did it perfectly. Next one is red leather, yellow leather. Good. And you want to really work out the kinks in your mouth muscles, especially for ESL speakers. The muscles of English are different than whatever your first language is. So over the years, as we speak a language, we develop just like really strong, unless we mumble a lot, but in general, we develop a really good understanding of how to make the sounds of our language. Then when we speak a new language, it's like doing a new kind of exercise. You're like, how does my body supposed to do this? So by doing these tongue twisters with the sounds of English, you just make your mouth muscles stronger for making the sounds of English. And then when it's time to speak in English, you can hit the consonants and the vowels just a bit harder. And in general, when you hit vowels and consonants harder, it's more convincing to the audience to hear those sharp sounds. And we can also understand you a bit better. So if there's any pronunciation issues, this will help with those as well. And then finally, the last one we're going to do is how now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? And we're going to remember that breathing. And the last one we're going to do is nice and loud and long. Breathe in. How now, brown cow? Good. If you would, please, write a note in the chat about how you're feeling now after having done that warm-up. So Craig, if you would read those out to me, that would be awesome. I can't seem to access the chat from presenter mode. But yeah, how are you feeling now? Are you feeling energized? Are you feeling ridiculous? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling tired? I get a bunch of different comments, but usually the words I hear are more awake, looser, more energized, happier, more confident, all of these great adjectives that you would want to feel like when you're going into your pitch. So it's just a good reminder to know that if you want to feel more awake, more energized, happier, looser, more confident, do this warm up before you pitch, and you'll be in just such a better space to deliver that kind of pitch that you really want to get investors on board. Any questions now here? We've got a Q&A at the end, but any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay, fantastic. And just if you want this slide deck, you can get in touch with me or Craig later, and I can share this with everybody, and it has a written reminder of the exercises that we did. Great. Okay, now we come to the feedback portion, and I would like anybody who's here to jump up, and we're going to give some feedback on the pitches. If we do not have any volunteers, I can keep presenting my content, but I want to give people the opportunity to pitch their startup now and get some real-time coaching and feedback on both the content and the delivery. So anyways, I see Lorraine is here. I see some others. Let me know if you want to jump up and pitch.
I think people are shy today, but I'll pitch
Sure.
when you're ready.
Yeah, Craig, take it away.
Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm working with this CBD pain relief balm company, so I'm going to pitch that.
Great. Whenever you're ready.
As you get older, your body starts to break down and we have more pain that impacts our quality of life. At the Pain Removers, we produce a maximum strength pain relief balm that helps remove the pain that stops you from living your life, whether it's foot pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, ankle pain, back pain. The pain relief balm is a topical balm that you apply on your skin and starts working right away and starts relieving your pain and removing your inflammation within minutes and lets you get back to living. If you know somebody who is in constant pain with arthritis or osteoarthritis or any of these things, take a look at thepainremovers.com and try our balm. They'll thank you for it.
Fantastic. Round of applause. Great pitch. Obviously, this is what Craig does for a living, as do I. So he's got really, really great structure to the pitch. The benefits are super clear. I'll give some positives first, and then we'll dive into some ways that you can start to adjust it. So instead of starting with, "Hi, my name is Craig Major, and I'm working for the CBD Pain Relief Company." This is a huge mistake that I see so many founders make. Do not start with your name and company. You have not hooked the audience yet. If you start with your name and your company, what will people do? They will forget it almost immediately. Start with some kind of hook. What Craig did was, as you get older, your body starts to break down. I can't remember exactly what you said. I just noted down, as you get older. Already, if you are getting older and you hear the phrase "as you get older" and start to hear about, these things that happen, if you are the target customer for this sales pitch, you start to identify with this. And if you're not, you hear this thing, which is very true. And if you're somebody who would recommend this product, then you go, "Yeah, this is happening to my mom," or "This is happening to my dad," or, and you start empathizing with what they're doing. And so Craig didn't start with the "Hi, my name is." He started with the hook. The hook could be a little bit more exciting. It could be a little bit more attention grabbing, but it's a decent hook, and it's not the "Hi, my name is." So I really, really hate when people start with "Hi, my name is," because it just turns people off. Nobody cares what your name is until you've got them hooked on the idea of the company, and especially the problems. And Craig started with the problem. The other thing was the way that you said the word pain was great. Pain is the problem. And you said pain with a bit of pain in your voice and on your face. And that's the kind of thing that I always like to teach, which is what we call emotional connection to the words. If you are talking about pain, death, struggle, emotional distress, these kind of deep problems that hopefully your business is solving, because that's the kind of stuff that matters to people, you want to show the appropriate amount of emotion on your face and on your voice. If you don't have any emotion when you're talking about things like pain or death or struggle or divorce or sadness or all of these kind of problems that hopefully, again, your business is solving, then people won't fully trust you that you want to solve their business. You'll seem a bit too cold and calculated and maybe, businesslike, and you're just trying to make money off this problem. Craig, when you connected emotionally to the word pain, I believe that you understood this problem, and I believe that you cared about this problem. So whenever you're talking about the words that are the pain points, there we go, of your pitch, try to think about what they really feel like, what they really mean. I had a guy once who pitched, and he said he was nervous, so he was smiling, and he went, "Every year, 50 million people die due to lack of water drinking." And I was just like, you can't smile when you say that. It's not appropriate. Human beings have there's something that we listen for when we're an audience. We listen for a concept called congruence. Congruence means your words, your facial expressions, your tone of voice, and your body language are all telling the same story. And that's what builds trust. So if you're smiling when you're talking about something awful, you are not building trust. In fact, you're doing the opposite. You're eroding trust. If you can show the appropriate level of concern when you are talking about bad things happening, you will build trust. So always think about this concept of congruence. Let your face, your body, and your voice match your words. You did that great, Craig. Now let's go into some adjustments. As I said, you did great when you were talking about pain. I want to see if you can use these speech settings, which I have up on the screen, to really go even farther with that. So Craig, I want you to use the same pitch, but slow down the pace. What you did, which was good in some ways, was you kind of went through the pitch at a high pace. If we look at this chart, we see that there's different elements of your speaking, and they all have a maximum of 10 and a minimum of 0. Craig, what would you rate yourself from 0 to 10 on pace? If 10 is as fast as you can possibly speak and 0 is as slow as you could possibly speak, what would you give yourself on that last pitch?
I would think I was probably in the 6 or 7 range.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I would agree.
well, or maybe 7, 8, depending.
Yeah, no, it wasn't overly fast. It wasn't like a 9 or a 10. It was probably about a 7, I would say. So it was nice and quick, which can be really good because it's sort of like that elevator pitch of, I respect that you don't have a lot of time. I respect that, you're a busy person and I don't have your attention for too long. So I'm going to give you all the ideas in a short space of time. So that's good. But when we're highlighting the problem that we're solving, we don't want people to think of it as casual. If you say something really fast, chances of what you're communicating to the audience is that this isn't really that important. That's why I'm rushing through it. So what I want you to do is just go a bit slower. Take that pace down from a 7 to like a 3, and really think through the as you get older part. What is really going on with people who are suffering in this way? And take us through that again, just much, much slower.
As you get older, your bodies start to break down, and we all have more pain that impacts our quality of life. At the pain removers, we produce a maximum strength pain relief balm that helps remove all types of pain to get you back and moving and increase your quality of life. This includes foot pain, shoulder pain, ankle pain, knee pain, all back pain, anything that's slowing you down. It's a topical, it's maximum strength CBD, and includes many other pharmaceutical ingredients that are designed to reduce inflammation and reduce pain to attack the source of the problem.
Okay, I'll stop you there. Sorry, I just had to have my computer charger. For anybody watching, how much more emotionally connected did Craig seem to the problem that time by slowing it down a little bit? I felt it much more. When you slow down, you also give your audience time to let the images kind of play in their head. And you also, by slowing down, give yourself time to really think, what am I actually saying here? What's the reality of what I'm saying here? So for a lot of people, especially tech entrepreneurs, I find they speak too quickly. Some of them don't. Like maybe I'd say 20% speak too slowly in general, but about 80% are, go, 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 get things done. What's that, move fast and break stuff kind of Facebook mentality. And that's great for a lot of things, but it's not great for pitching because you are rushing through so that your audience doesn't have time to let the concept sink in, and you don't have time to let the concept sink in for yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to say the whole thing at a 3 or a 4 for a pace, but choose moments to slow down. With the speech settings, you always want to choose moments to get louder and get softer, to go faster and to slow down, to speak with more clarity and then to kind of speak with a little less clarity as what you are doing with that variety is emphasis. It says pay special attention to these words here and don't worry so much about these words here. Take your audience through your pitch in that way, saying, hey, pain is really important. As you get older, pain starts to play a bigger role in your life. At this company, we're doing a CBD topical cream, which will help you with, you know what I mean? So you just choose which words you want to pop and which words you can kind of throw away a little bit more so that the whole pitch isn't slow and overly kind of emphasized. So that's really important for anybody watching to start to play with the speech settings. See where you can up your pace and see where you can bring it back down. See where you can get louder and see where you can get softer. And it's all just a choice of the emotional message that you're trying to send. And then of course, the just communication aspects of it. What words do you want to pop in people's minds? Does that make sense, Craig?
Absolutely does.
Okay, great. Any questions in the chat? I just want to make sure we're not steamrolling over anyone if they're trying to ask something.
So far, so good.
Beautiful. And now I want to talk about the other things that you did well in the pitch, and then again, see how we can make them even better. The other thing you said was, if you use this cream, you can get back to living. That is a perfect example of a concept that I use to teach storytelling. When we tell a story, we want to make it a whole complete experience. If you tell a story and there's no ending, how unsatisfying is that? We see this all the time in a new Netflix series. There'll be a great story. Do you remember when Game of Thrones ended? How pissed everybody was? Because the end of the story was so unsatisfying. So this investment into the story built up, and then there was just this shitty ending that everybody hated. And it almost kind of completely destroyed everybody's enjoyment of Game of Thrones because of how bad the ending was. So when you're pitching, if you've got this great problem that you're solving, and then you've got this great solution that you're proposing, but there's no end to that story, people will just be left a little unsatisfied. So we've got to remember that every story needs a good ending. And in business or pitching, the story is what we call the prize. So this is what I call the three main ingredients of story: problem, solution, and prize. Craig, your prize was get back to living. The problem was, as you get older, pain starts to, take away your enjoyment in life. The solution, this topical CBD cream. If you use this solution, you can get back to living. So that's your prize, and it's at the end. Now, a couple things that I think we can make that story even better. Problem's great, solution's great. The prize should be the last thing they hear, and it should be connected with the call to action. You actually said you can get back to living, and then later on you said, go to this website and see how you can get this cream and give it to someone and they'll thank you for it. So it would be much stronger if at the end you could say, go to cbdcream.com and buy this cream so you can get back to living. And that's the last thing people hear. If the last thing they hear is the prize, it's like this great musical flourish at the end of a song that gets everybody out of their seats and goes, way. It's like, this is how you know the song is over. This is how you know the pitch is over. If you tie your call to action in with the prize, then you end it on a really, really strong note. So I would make sure that the last thing people hear is get back to living. So can you just try that? Can you just try to end the pitch off? If you imagine you've already told them the problem and the solution, just try to give the call to action and the prize together and try to say get back to living as the last thing you say. Can you give that a shot?
Yes. All right.
So pain as you get older, there's this great topical CBD cream. It does this, this, and this. So now what do you want us to do?
Try the painremovers.com CBD balm so you can get back to living.
Great. Such a great ending, right? Do you see how that's a better ending? Now let's go back to the speech settings. And with the speech settings, we want all the important words, right, to be a bit elevated, a bit louder, a bit slower, a bit clearer. So do that again, if you would, please. And just apply higher volume, a bit higher pitch, and just a note on pitch. A lot of men especially get stuck low, and we sort of go, hello, hi, everyone. And especially if we get nervous, we tend to get stuck either low or maybe high, but we're sort of stuck in this bass sometimes. And it sounds a little disengaged, sounds a little bored. So Craig, I want you to see if you can up the volume, up the pitch of your voice a little bit to sound a bit more excited, and slow the pace down and up the clarity. Just kind of make it heightened, make it elevated in a way. It's a hack that I call be louder, slower, clearer, and more expressive when you want people to remember you. So give that a try with the same thing that you just did.
So try the painremovers.com CBD balm so you can get back to living.
Beautiful. That was really, really clear and excited. And now do the same thing and just try to make it more conversational. So that was great. You're integrating my feedback, and everybody goes through this moment when I work with them that they're integrating my feedback, but it doesn't quite feel natural yet because they're speaking in a sort of forced way to heighten it up. So try that again with the same speech settings, but just in a way that it's a bit more natural. And that you're sharing something super exciting that you really know works, that you're really excited about. And the excitement and the passion is what raises your speech settings, not that your pitch coach told you to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Let me
Great.
try it this way.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to try the Pain Removers CBD balm so you can remove the pain from your life and get back to living.
Oh my God. Lovely. That's it. That's perfect. That gets at a concept that I teach called heightened conversation. Heightened conversation is the speech settings are high enough, they're heightened enough that you're kind of performing at a higher level than when you're just sitting around with your friends and bullshitting and, where it doesn't really matter if people hear the words of your conversation. You guys are watching TV or you're just chatting, and it's not very important that the concepts are shared. as much as just you're creating a vibe, you know? The conversation parts is you're still capturing your authentic voice as much as you can, knowing that you have to be a bit louder, a bit slower, a bit clearer, a bit more expressive than you're used to speaking, so that people hear everything and that they're excited by what you're talking about, but it still feels real. And the way you did it at the end was perfect. That heightened conversationalism. It was strong enough and passionate enough that I wanted to listen to you, but I still felt that it was a real person giving me what they truly thought was a great product, not just a salesperson like forcing me to or trying to manipulate me into clicking on a website. Does that make sense?
Sounds great. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah. So I mean, the two concepts that we really are working on here is this heightened conversation, the speech settings, and the storytelling. And so that's the kind of thing that those are the two of the main pillars that I teach in general when I first start to work with an entrepreneur or a founder or a group of founders. Is your delivery on point, loud enough, slow enough, clear enough, expressive enough? You know, are you hitting the words? Are you emotionally connected? And then we have the story structure. Is it are you telling a story that maps to the hero's journey in this kind of 3-ingredient problem solution prize structure? And we go much deeper than that in general, but those are the two pillars that I think anybody watching this can really start to apply to their pitch. Are they speaking and delivering it in that heightened way that they're probably not used to and they have to practice a bit to get to? And have they really thought about the problem, the solution, and the prize of their story? And are they saying it in as clear and relatable a way as you were, Craig? Pain, you know, like literally your pitch can be done in 3 words: pain, cream, relief. That could even be your like advertising slogan: pain period, cream period, relief period. If you guys had a commercial, right? That's and every product or service, you should be able to tell the story in close to that concise a way, so that you truly know the arc of the story, you know?
Yeah, and to just what you just said, I like that, but I would change it to maybe 6 words. Have pain, apply cream, feel relieved.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, you can make it a bit more, that's a bit more specific, right? For me, I'm always working with how can we use fewer words to say more. That's kind of the copywriting principle, right? Like if you see great marketing copy, there's a really great guy, I think it's called Harry's Marketing Tips. I subscribe to his email newsletter. It's brilliant. Every couple weeks, I think, he sends you a bunch of marketing copy and shows how he would improve it. And it's brilliant. And it speaks to a lot of good stuff about pitching as well. Like, how do you say something in more human terms? How do you say it in fewer words? How do you say it in more conversational language? How do you make the benefits clearer? How do you make your niche target audience more clear? It's a great recommendation that I try to give to everybody. And one principle that he always talks about, which I try to apply, is how do you say it in fewer words? And so I like yours, Craig, but if you think about pain, cream, relief, then that is like that elegant story. And it's not full. Like, nobody is going to see that and know exactly what it is, but they're intrigued because you've kind of told this whole story in 3 words. Do you know the famous Ernest Hemingway 6-word story?
Is that the one about the toddler's shoes?
Yeah. Baby shoes, for sale, never worn. Just fucking heartbreaking, like soul destroying. And that's 6 words. And I think that the story goes that somebody bet him he couldn't write a 6-word story, and that's what he came up with. But it's such a heartbreaking example to use, but it really does get at the point that you can create this whole story without needing to over explain. And there's still parts missing. There's questions. It raises more questions than it answers, right? But that's okay. A story can do that. And as a pitch, you don't need to give all the information every time you pitch. You want to give enough information to get to the next step with who's ever listening to your pitch. And you could do that in 3 words, right? Imagine that would be that would be a pretty badass elevator pitch. Somebody goes, what's your pitch? And you go, pain, cream, relief. If you did that to an investor, I bet you a bunch of them would go, you know what? I admire the balls to just give me a 3-word pitch. I do want to know more. And especially, if you can do, if it does what you promise.
That I'll give you the feedback, because I talk to investors all the time, and I'm happy to do exactly that.
Yeah. So I do want to kind of, I always try to push the principle of say it in fewer words. And as you can probably tell, that's something I need to self-apply as well. I always over-explain as a coach, probably as a boss, probably as a person. I like to talk. So I'm constantly struggling with myself to say it with fewer words.
Hemingway also said, I think if I had more time, I'd write a shorter sentence. Simplification takes a little time.
Totally. I think it was at theater school that they taught us it's easier to write longer. It's harder to write to be concise. And as an editing principle, don't try to write it short at first, especially if you're an early stage entrepreneur. Get everything down on paper, so to speak, on the digital paper. And then, cut what you don't need. But don't worry about being concise right away. But before you present to people, before you send out an email, a newsletter, a social media post, whatever the way that you're communicating to your audiences, try to think of the principles of how can I say it in fewer words? How can I be more concise, more brief? Also, because people don't have that much capacity in their memories. That's why those little cheesy slogans work, and they're annoying sometimes, and they can be douchey, but it penetrates the brain in a way that you want it to, in a way that you want it to stick. Any questions from you, Craig, at this point about some of the stuff we're talking about any other concepts of pitching? We haven't talked about English too much today, so we can switch it to that if we want. But any questions?
No, I think I've learned a lot working today, and looks like we lost a few people on Zoom for some reason. I think they're having some technical issues.
Right.
So it's up to you whether you want to go ahead with this or talk about English as a second language.
Yeah. So let's get into that a bit, because I think one thing that is really difficult is when somebody who speaks one language is listening to somebody who speaks multiple languages speak in their mother tongue, the person listening. There is often an assumption, even unconsciously, that this person is not as smart as maybe somebody who speaks the native language, because their grammar and their vocabulary is not as extensive or comfortable or fluent. And that's something I think in general we have to try to break down in society, because if you are listening to somebody pitch in another language, that person is very smart. The fact that they can pitch in a language that is not the language they spoke growing up is incredible. And I say this as somebody who could probably only pitch in like Spanish. I think that's the only other language I could possibly pitch in. And I'd may be making grammar mistakes and vocabulary mistakes up the wazoo. And we just have to start to understand that if you're an investor, if you are a employer, if you are anybody hearing somebody speak with an accent, that means that person is smart. So work against the notion that maybe they're not as intelligent as their native English speaking counterparts, because it's actually the opposite meaning. If they're pitching with an accent, it means they're very smart, because they learned a whole other language that they can now speak about in business terms with business vocabulary, which is not easy at all. So then the next part of that is knowing that there is this unfortunate bias in listeners' minds, especially listeners who don't speak another language. As the non-native English founder yourself, you've got to start to do your best to work around that. My recommendation is do not worry so much about your grammar, your vocabulary, and your pronunciation. These are the things that people study in an English class. If you are at the point where you're pitching in English, chances are your English is good enough to get investment. And that's hard for a lot of people to swallow. If you have a very, very difficult time pronouncing English words, if you have a very limited vocabulary, if you have a very rudimentary understanding of grammar, yes, you should probably take a couple English classes and maybe, work a little bit. But in general, almost every single ESL founder I work with is good enough at English. They just don't know these kind of skills, the communication skills. And the communication skills are way more important to work on, and they give you way more bang for your buck. In 3 hours, you can completely transform the way you communicate through the power of storytelling and public speaking communication skills. And if you spent 3 hours on your grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation, that's like what, 1 week of class. You're not going to learn anything in 1 week of class, maybe a couple words, So put the time into the storytelling. Put the time into the speech settings and the tongue twisters and the warming up. So then you will realize that even if your accent is a bit thick, even if you don't know the exact right word, you can speak slowly enough and clearly enough and with enough emotional engagement that you will convince the investor you have what it takes, even if they don't understand every word, or even if you made a mistake with your grammar or your vocabulary or your pronunciation. I really want to start to focus on this because psychologically too, a lot of people are held back by their fear of being perfect in English. Oh, I don't want to mess up. Oh, I messed up a word. I messed up the grammar there. It doesn't really matter. As long as people understand the general thing of what you're saying, you should be focusing way more on the storytelling and the public speaking and the communication aspect. Speech settings, story, emotional connection. That's what matters. There are some brilliant public speakers I've seen who speak at a intermediate at best English level, but they smile and they use their hands and they use their eyebrows and they speak with passion and emotion, and they know how to tell a story, and they know what kind of concepts are interesting to an audience. When you do that, it almost doesn't matter about anything else. So that's just my little rant about that. I really urge anybody who's watching, stop worrying so much about grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Worry much more about speech settings and storytelling and emotional connection. Hope that's helpful.
That's very helpful. I think it's super important. The emotional connection is more important than people realize.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these unconscious things happening when people listen to somebody talk, and what we might call a bullshit detector, especially in business. There's a lot of people who are full of shit in business. They're trying to make money. They don't really care about what they're doing. They may not have their customers' best interest at heart. And then look at Buddy, SBF, right? He conned everybody. Somehow, I looking at him now and watching him speak, I was like, it must have been because of like the pajama bottoms and the like messy hair and something that he just somehow flew under people's radar. What's your take on that, by the way?
Yeah, I think he got some big investment early on, and those big investors pushed it like nobody's business,
Right.
and that's what happens. Like with all
So
these
yeah,
things.
he had the money and the recommendations or the vouching of some big players, and so that got him to skate by. But like somehow he just he grifted everybody, and so a lot of people kind of know that that's happening, even if people do let themselves be conned. But people do have these kind of unconscious bullshit detectors going on at all times. So when you speak, you just want to make really, really sure that don't convince people that you're telling the truth. Think about the truth of what you're saying and connect to it. That's much better. So, a lot of people in my industry and like communication coaching, they talk about persuasion. Don't think about persuasion. Think about, what am I really saying here? Do I believe in it? What is the truth of it? What is the emotion of each moment of my pitch? What is pain? Going back to your pitch, Craig, what does pain actually feel like? What is it like to wake up in the morning every single day in pain? What does that do to you psychologically? How does that affect your mood, your happiness, your relationships with the people you live with? your relationships with the people that you see at work. You know, I remember when my mom was before she got her knee operations, she was so mean for like a while because, and at the time I was like, why would she be so mean? But I also encountered a chronic pain situation a few years later, and I understood. She was just so hurting and uncomfortable every day that it really affected her mood, and it was an incredible thing to go through, because I was just like, oh my God, no wonder. And it totally made sense. And it was just this like constant, nonstop discomfort and inflammation, and lack of being able to move the way you want, not able to go for a run, not able to drive. She wasn't able to drive herself places. She had to use canes. And so, if you have that connection in your personal life to the problems you're talking about, that's great, but use it. Don't like forget about it. Bring that in. That's what an actor would do, right? If you're playing a character and this character has a drug addiction, if you are, if you have that emotion, you would try to bring that in. And if you don't experience, rather, you would try to bring that experience into your character. If you don't have that experience, you have to imagine, or you can research what it's like, and you can listen to people tell stories, but you want to be able to connect to that deep emotional thing of what is it really like to experience these things. And then on the flip side, when you get that relief, what's that moment of, oh fuck, that's good, when you put on a cream or take a pill or whatever? What is that moment of, oh my God? I'll tell you a story for myself. When I had a back injury, when I started my company in China, the reason I left was because I hurt my back so badly that I couldn't walk, and I had to come back to Canada to get treated. When I came home, I had run out of medication on the journey from China back to Canada. And so I remember I woke up at 1 a.m. when I was back at my mom's house, and I just started sobbing from pain. I'd never done that like since I was a child. And then the next morning I went to the doctors and they gave me a Percocet, and it was like, yeah, it was heroin basically. It was just like, oh, just complete relief flooded through my system. And the emotional impact of that was huge, because I went from this like, what am I going to do? I can't live like this, to, okay, at least I have relief for a couple hours. Now, I'm not talking about the benefits of Percocet, because obviously that's not a way to live, but with your cream, Craig, the CBD thing you're doing, that's another thing to really think of, is what is that moment of relief like for a pain sufferer, and hold that emotion as you talk about it as well. And you just show a little bit of that on your face and in your voice of get back to living, and just really think about that moment of, I put cream on my knee and I can go for a walk for the first time in months. Just having that emotional imagination, spending time thinking through those things is really, really important as well. So I do these meditations sometime where I take people through their customer's experience. So let's say they're in real estate, I take them through how a home buyer's kind of day or week in the life. For you, it would be like, take yourself through a day in the life of a pain sufferer. What's it like to wake up? What are all the things they're doing before breakfast? What is their daily routine like? What is their emotional state? What thoughts are running through their head? What are their physical sensations? All that kind of thing. So that speaks to the emotional connection. Sorry, I've just been rambling a bit now, but.
No, and I agree. And that's why I have to figure out how to connect a bunch of the testimonials we have to the pitch. And if I'm doing it live, I would think I would be telling my story and then having the testimonials kind of go in the background so people can,
Sure.
see them rather than taking the time to do it. But
yeah, I think that's great. And I think if you can tell a personal story that happened to you, it's always better, because you don't have to like imagine what it's like. You remember.
yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I would tell my story. I've got 2 or 3 around, about this specifically. One with a motorcycle accident, which I think will be most impactful.
Yeah.
But that's for me. But yeah, I think people, from the pitch point of view, because of this, it's not just for one thing. I'm going to tell my story, but in the background, you'll kind of see other people's stories.
Yeah.
Because they have different kinds of pain and whatnot. So I think that would be effective.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I can't tell you how many founders I've worked with who will give a pitch and I'll be like, so why did you start this business? And they'll be like, well, because I had this like horrible accident when I was 21, or like, you know, because when I was 6, my dad experienced this. And you're just like, oh my God, that is so powerful to hear that personal story. And it makes total sense, you know, put that in the pitch if you feel at all comfortable doing it. And it can be scary to share a personal story. It can maybe feel wrong, especially if what happened to you was traumatic or really difficult. It can feel like you're using it to make money. I struggle with that all the time when it comes to sharing my own story, but I know that it really opens people up in a real positive way, not a manipulative, skeezy business way, but it makes people feel like you've shared something with me and I appreciate that. You've opened up, you know, this space, which is normally so businessy and impersonal. You've made it personal, and that's actually a really nice place to be, I find. So I would say start with your own personal story of pain, or put it somewhere near the beginning, and that's a powerful way to talk about the problem. How are we doing for time, Craig? I feel like
I think we've pretty much used up all your time today. I really appreciate you taking the time. If people see this, they want to work with you, reach out or follow you, you know, do you have something where do they go?
Totally. So outloudnow.com is our website. Will@outloudnow.com is my email. You can follow me at LinkedIn on LinkedIn is where I post a lot of public speaking, pitching, storytelling tips. I do Instagram a lot too, at Will Greenblatt. And I started doing TikTok, although it's just the worst thing in the world, TikTok. But, you know, if you use it and you don't agree with me or whatever, then follow me on TikTok as well, because I just basically post the same stuff on all those mediums. I try to post daily to, like, you know, give reminders and exercises of the type that we're doing here. So this online community thing is old, but the rest of it is my information. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Will. And I'll be in touch soon because we were working on a